to Eye on America. I'm Michelle Miller. Today we meet people grappling with some of our nation's most pressing issues and how to solve them. We visit San Diego to see how law enforcement is working to stop deadly fentanyl from being smuggled into the U.S. And in Washington, D.C., we hear from the first American black female billionaire about how she's using her fortune to champion causes she cares about. But first, an issue for Americans all over the country, feeling the pinch over food prices. The cost of groceries increased nearly 12% in the past year, and prices for fresh produce remain high. Adriana Diaz takes us from the market to the farm in Chicago to find out why.
At 40 Acres Fresh Market, the greens are usually the first to go.
Look how dark the green is. It just looks so wonderful here. I had to get it.
So just the 2 avocado?
Elizabeth Abuna's small business aims to sell affordable produce on Chicago's west side, which has few fresh food options.
Your total is going to be $35.26.
Since 2020, Abuna has raised her prices by at least 30% at a time when food prices are up everywhere.
You used to be able to get blueberries 2 for $5, and now it's just 1 pack is $3.
Food is costing a lot, and it's noticeable.
When a customer says to you, this is too expensive,
I typically explain it as I grocery shop just like you do, and it's hurting me too. There is no way I can offer this at the same price that I did 2 years ago when my labor expense has gone up, my transportation expense has gone up, and the cost of goods has gone up.
Those goods come from her wholesaler, the man next to her, Bob Skaman, who works for Struby's Celery and Vegetable Company.
Me and him have a cucumber issue right now. There used to be a point where I could sell cucumbers at 50 cents a pop, and now they're minimum $1.
Bob, what's your side of the cucumber story?
We continue to have bad weather in different growing regions. California was above 100 degrees for almost 2 months straight.
Even cardboard boxes are more expensive due to a paper shortage.
2 years ago was $1.90 a box, and now we're paying $2.90 a box.
Remember these bright greens? They come from here, Go Row Fresh, outside Chicago, owned by fifth-generation farmer James Gobert.
Fertilizer prices are up 100%. Fuel's up 50%. We need to pass it on to the consumer, but they can only take so much.
He says even twist ties cost more. So after his greens get packed, rinsed, and cooled, he sells them to the wholesaler, Bob Skaman, for $14 a box, up from $11 2 years ago. So the wholesaler raises prices. These are the greens going to Abuna's company for $16 a box.
When we first started 40 Acres Fresh Market, I could do greens at 69 cents a bunch. Now at our markets, we typically sell greens at $1.25 a bunch.
What would you say to somebody who's going to a food market and raising their eyebrows when they see prices have gone up?
I would say they just need to think about what goes into that. There's a lot of hands that touch the product, and all of our costs are up on every single aspect, so the cost has to go up.
Moving now from food to food for the soul, music. In the U.S., fewer than 5% of orchestra musicians are Black or Latino. Well, one Los Angeles nonprofit is trying to increase that number, transforming lives and minds through music. Manuel Bajorquez joins us and tells us how.
On any given Sunday night, at a church in Los Angeles, Chuck Dickerson conducts a unique community of musicians.
African Americans make up 1.8% of the orchestra workforce in the United States. Latinos make up 2.5% of the orchestra workforce in the United States. And it's been that way for 40 or 50 years.
The Inner City Youth Orchestra of Los Angeles is trying to change that tune. It started in 2009 when 9 African American music students asked Dickerson to help create the orchestra.
What we do in music is we teach excellence. When you learn those skills in music, those skills are transferable into other aspects of your life.
14-year-old trombone player Chanel Davis is one of the newest members.
The music is sometimes new to me. I have a difficult time reading it, so it's a little bit hard. but I have people around me that can help me with that.
For cellist Hannah Innes, the orchestra gives her something she hasn't found anywhere else.
I think that spaces like these are very important because it uplifts and gives confidence to minority students.
A confidence heard on one of music's biggest stages. LA's Walt Disney Concert Hall. They've played a season-ending concert for the last 10 years.
You cannot compare the pride that resounds both in the hearts of those kids, but in their families and everybody they touch, just because they've played on that stage.
Ahead, how border agents are trying to stop fentanyl before it enters the country. This is Eye on America. Welcome back. Some law enforcement is calling fentanyl the most dangerous narcotic they've ever seen. But for smugglers, it's big business to get the drug into the U.S. Jeff Glore saw the surprising ways cartels try to bring in fentanyl and how Border Patrol at the nation's busiest crossing tries to stay one step ahead.
Hey, where are you going today? Anything to declare today?
At the San Ysidro port of entry in between San Diego and Tijuana, more than 65,000 vehicles cross every day.
What are we passing through now?
So this is a piece of what we call our non-intrusive inspection technology. So this enables us to scan as a driver drives his or her vehicle through. We're looking for packages concealed within that vehicle.
Port Director Marisa Marin says by now, 60% of all the fentanyl seized in the United States is found at border crossings in Southern California.
When did fentanyl start becoming a big deal here?
So we first saw fentanyl in 2008, but really we've seen a skyrocket in fentanyl since fiscal year 2019. You'll see what the officer is doing. He's using what we call a fiber optic scope. And so that has a camera at the end, and it enables him to look in the gas tank.
They store the packages in gas tanks.
Absolutely, and so we've seen it in different ways. There could be packages floating in the gas tank, or they could build a separate compartment within the gas tank so that there's both gas and space for the narcotics.
And the packages of fentanyl we're talking about coming in are typically like yay big?
Yeah, I'd say, the size maybe of a brick could be a couple $100,000 worth of fentanyl.
Do they hide stuff in the seats?
They normally hide stuff in the seat, so I'm gonna push on the seat to make sure that it feels right.
The CBP officers who run the vehicle inspections search for signs of hidden drugs in places most would never think to look.
Sometimes they can create a compartment right here, and I don't see any new screws or anything. There's no thumbprint over here. It's all dirty. I mean, it hasn't been touched. Another trick, you put your feet over here, and you tap it this way to hear the vibration on the other side.
Yeah. It's a lot of stuff to search.
Yeah.
Assisted by trained canines, they can search thousands of vehicles a day.
It's a constant cat and mouse game here. They're trying to get better at what they're doing, and you're trying to...
And we're trying to counter those efforts.
Efforts which include not just where they hide the drugs, but also who they use to carry them.
Right now we're seeing a trend in minors and young adolescents who come from less economic means being targeted in high schools, in junior highs. And these smuggling organizations are offering them, for them, what seems is a lot of money, $500, $1,000, and tell them to put this in your pocket, put this in your backpack, and cross the border with it.
How long has that trend been going on for?
It's increased in the last few months with the trend for juvenile smuggling across our ports of entry. I think that the smuggling organizations are very agile.
Then there are the far more elaborate efforts.
We're here just a stone's throw from the border. You can see part of a border wall just across that parking lot. Across this street, there's a warehouse building. Looks like hundreds of other warehouse buildings along the US-Mexico border here in San Diego. Authorities found underneath that building, 6 stories underground, a tunnel that was 1,700 feet long connecting the two countries that was used for drug smuggling.
That tunnel had electricity and small train tracks. and authorities have no idea how long it was in operation, who was running it, and how many others like it may be left.
It's getting worse.
It continues to grow.
What do you need to help?
So for us at CBP, it's layered enforcement. It's the ability to really focus technology, layer our enforcement efforts, and as we look at trends for smuggling techniques, fentanyl, kids, a very small portion can go a long way, and it doesn't have to be a huge amount to be able to make an impact to our community.
How many of these vehicles would you have to search to stop all the drugs from coming in?
The ability to find every single piece of fentanyl that's smuggled into the United States, quite frankly, doesn't exist, but it's really the effort to leverage both technology, officer instincts, training and intelligence to really deter some of this illicit activity.
Switching now from safety at the border to safety in the sky. A flight attendant's role goes far beyond just serving drinks. In fact, they're considered first responders in air travel emergencies. Janet Shamlian goes to flight attendant training in Houston to see how they're preparing to meet new and old challenges.
Release your seatbelts and get out. Release seatbelts! Get out! Leave everything!
It's preparation they'll likely never have to use.
Come this way, jump and slide!
But this is part of the rigorous schooling all future United flight attendants go through at the airline's newly opened 56,000 square foot training center in Houston.
Please arm doors for departure.
It's 6 weeks of instruction, drills, and testing as the airline aims to hire 4,000 flight attendants this year. The training reinforced as often as once a year.
This is our door training room.
Michelle Gila Johnson is United's Vice President of In-Flight Services.
You have a lot of positions to fill.
Yes.
How tough is that?
It's evident by how many people still want to be a flight attendant. I mean, 69,000 applications over a year, hiring less than 6%.
The pandemic saw thousands of flight attendants who either quit, were furloughed, or took a buyout. Then as travel rebounded, airlines were short-staffed, and all are now hiring. Trainees like 57-year-old Carl Gilbert.
I thought it was kind of old, but then I thought this would be a nice career transition to take me into retirement.
And Kylie Strack, a new vocation for her as well.
What was your last line of work?
I was a firefighter.
Do you think this would be less stressful?
Not at all. No, you get to be a firefighter, you get to be a healthcare responder, you get to be in customer service, and you get to travel the world.
But first, there's this. The mechanics of opening the doors of 6 different aircraft types.
A rare situation where a flight attendant would need to do this, but in the event, we're ready.
A model of a plane's fuselage in the new Aquatic Center has trainees practicing for water landing. And there's the everyday duties of food and beverage service in what looks like a wide-bodied plane.
It's not just service and safety. A big part of training focuses on de-escalation techniques, a sign of the times.
With a pandemic trend of unruly passengers,
I will break your neck.
There's emphasis on how to react.
It's not what we say, but it's how we say it, and it's the way that we approach that situation.
Excuse me.
Teams run through potential scenarios.
But why are we on a delay? I don't understand.
I apologize. I sincerely apologize.
We put them in scenarios where they have to respond in a way they can be empathetic and informative.
The median pay for flight attendants nationwide is just under $62,000 a year. New hires earn less. But attracted to the perks of travel, trainees like Kylie Strack taking the plunge.
How does that compare to firefighting? Man, it was a rush. It was a nice little rush.
Elevating training for the changing challenges of ensuring safety in the skies.
After the break, we introduce you to the first woman black billionaire in America. Stay with us. We close our show with a story of success. Trailblazing business mogul Gila Johnson is America's first black woman billionaire, overcoming ample obstacles along the way. I recently spent the day with her to learn about her rise and how she's making an impact with her fortune.
Go Caps!
When it comes to the Washington Capitals, Gila Johnson's what you call a proud vocal partner.
Did you ever see yourself
as a professional sports mogul?
No, I wouldn't call myself a mogul.
Still, the 2018 Stanley Cup champ scored an ultimate trifecta for her.
I know when things are going to work and when they're not going to work. I really trust my instinct.
Making Johnson the first and only black woman with an ownership stake in 3 professional sports teams.
I have the wonderful WNBA National Champions 2019 Washington Mystics.
Drop the mic.
I have the Wizards, which we're still working on for a title. And then we have the 2018 NHL Capitals.
And how does that fit in?
It's my side gig. It's my side gig.
Her story begins in Maywood, Illinois. Her mother, an accountant, her father, one of only 11 black neurosurgeons in the country.
You talk about learning resilience. We had to move 13 times because my father could not practice in white hospitals. And everyone asked me, you know, moving that much, what was your childhood like? And I thought it was an adventure.
Her first act in life was as a concert violinist. But it was in 1980 that Johnson took the first step in building an empire when she co-founded BET along with her ex-husband. Talk about those early days. What was your vision?
The whole purpose of starting BET was to give the African Americans a voice. It was the birth of cable. And everything that was being pumped out there from CNN to Nickelodeon, you name it, nobody talked about the importance of the African American voice. If I could do it all over again, my voice could be listened to, I think the network would have looked a little different.
More news, less entertainment. But by 2001, the network sold to Viacom and cemented Johnson in history as the first black woman billionaire. You don't like that title.
I don't like it.
Why?
Money's not everything. It's how you use what you have to make things work and make your life work.
Her life took a turn when she divorced in 2002, a pivotal moment where she realized she lost herself in her marriage.
You then kind of withdraw into the shadows and take on their identity. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned in life was that shouldn't have happened. I lost sight of who I really was.
You emerged after the divorce.
It took me 2 years, but I figured out finally who I was. It was like a rebirth.
Shortly after, she remarried, and that rebirth became the jumping-off point for her hospitality empire that now includes everything from a PGA golf course to resorts around the world, including the Salamander in Middleburg, Virginia, a place she now calls home.
It's buzzing.
She had this idea.
Betsy Davis has lived in Middleburg her whole life and says since the opening of the resort in 2005, this area has seen a growth in business by almost 70%.
There's a difference in thriving and surviving, and we will always survive, but this energy that's helped us to really thrive.
A stone's throw from horse country is the nation's capital and a cause close to the longtime equestrian, creating a better life for police horses.
The living conditions of these horses was unbelievable. We saw rats in the grain areas where, you know, they get their food. You could see the desperation in their eyes. And they had been in those weeds since 1976 with the purpose that they were going to get a new home, but it never happened.
And she did.
On the left here is where the
by helping to raise over $22 million to build these new stables.
People don't realize, yeah, you've got the nation's living room here, but this living room has to be protected.
Using her empire to give back is at the core of Johnson's work, a far cry from the little girl whose childhood dream was to take the classical music scene by storm.
My mother always told me to never say can't. She hated that word, that you can't do something. And I think especially for young women, they need to find out who they are first. And this is a very important path.
Johnson says she's now in her third act and is the happiest she's ever been.
I don't regret anything that has happened to me personally or anything, because I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. And everything that happened to me has made me who I am now.
For more stories like these and live coverage of breaking news 24/7, stream us right here on CBS News. I'm Michelle Miller. Thank you for watching Eye on America.